Heading into this weekend's game against Tampa Bay, one has to wonder if the Saints' heart will be in it after such a tough loss last week to the Carolina Panthers. We'll wonder no more as Jeff Duncan is in studio to tell us what he thinks. Next on the Black and Gold Today. Welcome to the Black and Gold Today, sponsored by Cadillac of New Orleans. I'm Jim Derry. As the Saints are set to travel to Tampa Bay, they do so as underdogs for just the second time in the Sean Payton era. What does that mean for this weekend? Well, if you believe in recent history, it means they have a 25% chance to win Sunday, as they're 6-18 the past 6 seasons as an underdog. That's not against the spread, that's straight up. So let's not waste any more time. We bring in NOLA.com, the Times Picayune sports columnist Jeff Duncan. And Dunk, before we get into what we think about might happen Sunday, let's talk about this past Sunday real quick. And you know, what a disappointing, I guess, ending. But just overall, the Saints' offense played pretty well against a really tough defense, and you know, one guy had a really bad day.
Yeah, Brandon Browner has had better days. But look, the Saints, you have to be encouraged with the way they played, the way they competed in a game that really no one gave them much of a chance in. It's just so disappointing to invest that much into the game and you get a defensive score, you get an extra point score. I think the odds are when you get those kind of scores, you win the game. And it just shows you how good Carolina is and also some of the flaws that this Saints team has, that they still couldn't capitalize on those big momentum-changing plays to put away the Panthers.
Something that we've only seen once in the Sean Payton era is a 4-game losing streak. We have one here. We've never seen a 5-game losing streak. An 0-4 third quarter after such a promising comeback to get back to 4-4. I can't imagine what the mood's like inside that locker room.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to come back emotionally from that loss. They invested so much in that game and came so close to winning, and now you've got to go on the road and play a Tampa Bay team that's 6-6, that's back in the playoff hunt from a 1-3 start and is in the playoff hunt for the first time in a long time. So you've got a young team that's going to be excited and has already proven they can beat the Saints. They beat them earlier this year in the Superdome in week 2. I think this is a recipe for a difficult Sunday for the Saints. They're going to have to play extremely well and avoid making mistakes, which is something that they've struggled to do when they've gone on the road.
And even when the Saints have been a good team over the past 5 years, you know, as we showed, the record dictates that they don't play well as underdogs. There's a reason they're an underdog, and only winning 25% of your games. You know, this isn't any easier to go on the road and win a game like this. They're 4 or 5 point underdogs.
No, and they've struggled even in their really good years against Tampa Bay. You know, I mean, they usually manage to win the game, but it's always a dogfight, and they're always the team that finds a way to win. And I wrote about this in my column on Sunday. They've transformed, unfortunately, into a team that finds ways to lose these close games right now. I don't think there's a lot of confidence in the locker room. And if you think about it, Jim, I mean, over half the roster is new.
Yeah.
Over half this roster wasn't part of those great teams in 2009 and 11. These are young guys that have only seen mostly a losing culture. And so I think it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be up to the leaders on the team, guys like Drew Brees and Zach Strief and the rest of that group, to get this team's mindset right. But I still think it's going to be a very difficult assignment.
Speaking of transformation, this team, you say there's only half of these players around. Well, I think next year at this time there's a very good chance that it'll be about that same percentage as far as how many are still here. They have a lot of work to do over the next several months. And I would imagine the next 4 weeks are going to be almost like preseason games, except you'll see Drew Brees playing the whole way and things like that, but they're going to be a lot of tryouts per se.
Yeah, and one thing I pointed out, I alluded to it in my column on Sunday from the Dome, and I think Saints fans should think about this in these last 4 games. This could be the last hurrah for that group from the 2006 draft class. Jari Evans, Marcus Colston, and Zach Strief, still part of this team, been here 10 years now, and there's a distinct possibility all 3 of them will not be back next year, and they deserve a proper send-off because they've been a part of the core of the most successful run in this franchise's history.
No question. And, you know, Sean Payton and Drew Brees, there's also uncertainty there. The odds are that both will be back, but there's still a distinct possibility that one or both will be gone.
Yeah, I think more so Payton than Brees, but you're right. I mean, the reports are out there for a reason, And I'm not so sure at this point that it might not be the right thing to do for both parties.
Yeah.
It just seems like the message or whatever Sean Payton is sending out isn't being received. And maybe it's time to move on for him and find a new challenge through no fault of his own, but it happens. It happened to Jim Moore here. He went to Indianapolis and had success. And look, there's going to be no shortage of suitors for Sean Payton. He's one of the best coaches in the league.
It's one of the things I talked about yesterday, in the fact that Jim Moore, Jim Haslett, they both went through a stretch. You get to a certain point with the same team. The shelf life of an NFL coach with the same team, the best coaches go through it. Bill Parcells went through it in a couple different places. Staying in the same place, it's hard to stay motivated. And I'll be honest, and I would imagine you would think the same thing. Sean Payton's heart just doesn't seem like it's been in it this year.
Yeah, he's definitely seemed like, I don't want to say 1 foot out the door. That's not fair, because I think he's been invested with this team. But it's just the fire that we saw before doesn't seem to be there. I know he's still competitive. But look, Steve Spurrier said this exact same thing earlier this year when he stepped down at South Carolina. I think he'd been there 11 years. And he said at some point, you've had your run, and it's time for someone else to let them have a run. I think that might be the case here in New Orleans.
No more Tom Landrys these days.
No. I mean, Chuck Knowles, those kind of guys, it's very difficult to do in this day and age.
Well, stick around for the extra point. We're going to have you do your picks. Maybe we'll make this a weekly thing. Have a couple
let's
picks
do it.
anyway.
I'm looking forward to it.
We'll be right back after this with Wednesday's Extra Point.
What's one of the nicest things that comes with your new Cadillac from Cadillac of New Orleans? 0% interest.
Get 0% interest on all new Cadillacs, now at Cadillac of New Orleans. New owners, new attitude, on Lime Street in Rye in Metairie.
Well, we started this last week. I think it's a good thing. Your picks column is highly popular here at NOLA.com. And let's take Thursday's game first. We'll take Thursday's game, and then you give us Sunday's best bet. And this might be the best Thursday game of them all. Two very good football teams. One sort of going down a little bit, but one that's, I think, could be a Super Bowl contender, Minnesota at Arizona.
Well, I like Minnesota in this game. I mean, they had a dismal performance last week at home against the Seahawks. I think they're going to bounce back from that. I'm not sure they're going to win the game in Arizona. Arizona's got 2 losses on the year, but I think they're going to cover. I think the line's about 7.5. I like them to keep that game close because I think I'm a big believer in the bounce back factor, especially for a team that's still alive in the playoff hunt, and Minnesota is a desperate team right now.
Do you think Arizona's the best team in the NFC?
Yeah, I do right now. I think the most complete team, but watch Seattle. I mean, they're coming on right now.
And Jimmy Graham's gone, so they're playing a lot better.
They're looking like the old Seattle that we saw. And look, there's nobody in the NFC East you have to worry about, right?
Right.
And Carolina, I don't know what it is about them.
Yeah, they haven't convinced
They don't move the needle too much, and a lot of people don't believe them, but they keep winning.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Sunday's best bet. Lots of games to choose from. What do you like most about Sunday?
Well, we just talked about Carolina. I like Carolina at home. They're on a roll right now, and I think they got the wake-up call this past week, and that's what Cam Newton said against the Saints. They didn't play particularly well in that game, not to take anything away from the Saints' effort, but they get a reeling Atlanta team at home. I don't think Atlanta can match up with them physically at all, and I think Carolina got that slip-up game out of the way. I think they roll in this one.
Carolina gets to play them again in 2 weeks. They get to go to Atlanta, so that should be interesting. Lastly, are the Panthers going to run the table?
No, I don't. I think they'll slip up. They got a couple of dicey road games they could lose, and after watching them on Sunday, they look like a team that might need a loss just to kind of get that monkey off their back. Plus, there's also the possibility, like the Saints encountered, where they may want to rest their guys. I mean, they have everything locked up in the division now. Now they're just looking for home field advantage. They're going to get to a point where it's going to be in their best interest to rest their starters.
All 16 of Jeff Duncan's picks are here on NOLA.com, so these were just 2 of them. Little tease. You might want to take a look. But thanks for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday for more about the Saints' upcoming game at Tampa Bay. See you then.